So anyone who is interested in ending AIDS must have what we call HIV action integrity. Obwerufu, integrity. That research is saying this. So if I am really dedicated to ending
Despite
AIDS,
progress in reducing new infections and AIDS-related deaths, prevention efforts are still falling short, with significant gaps in access to life-saving tools and services. The Executive Director of the Joint United Nations Programme on HIV/AIDS UNAIDS, Engineer Winnie Byanyima, says the struggle to end HIV is still hit hard by funding gap, poor access to the life-saving treatment, and above all, continued stigma and discrimination.
Today we are in crisis. With the largest and most generous contributor to the global HIV response pulling back with the closure of USAID and the reduction of PEPFAR, women across this region and in other regions have lost access to critical medicines, lost their jobs as community service providers.
Byanyima, however, says the war is not yet lost, citing the international community of women living with HIV body, saying such activists are a great milestone to end HIV.
ICW East Africa, you are on the ground in communities. I find you there. You are in the courtrooms. We see you there. You are in the corridors of power. You are ensuring that women living with HIV are heard, and not only heard, are taken into real account in decision making.
The founding member of the International Community of Women Living with HIV East Africa and convener of the East African Fierce Awards, Lilian Moreko, says the 20 years of ICW East Africa have been characterized by both high and low moments for women and girls living with HIV/AIDS.
HIV still has a female face, and now the face is strange that we are talking about a face of an adolescent girl and young woman. That in Uganda, for example, 570 adolescent girls and young women get infected weekly. Unacceptable numbers. Why we need to really put on our shoes, to put on our boots, and make sure that we reach that last mile. We need to eliminate new HIV infections.
Over the past 2 decades, ICWEA has grown from small network into a strong regional voice with chapters in 5 countries. That empowering our women and girls living with HIV to take their rightful place in decision making, that is, as safe spaces, and advancing access to life-saving services and strengthening feminist leadership across Eastern African countries.
However, I want to say that it was out of a strategic decision by them, the ICW Global Steering Committee in 2003, that decided to break out the block of ICW in 2 regions to serve better the needs and priorities of women and girls living with HIV, specific to the region, and giving birth to 9 regions, including ICW Eastern Africa in 2005. And over the past 2 decades, 20 years, I'm telling you, if it was to be equated to a child growing up, we would be in late adolescence. 20 years, we are towards getting out of adolescence. But as organizations, 20 years mean a lot to us. ICWEA has remained steadfast in advancing the rights, the dignity, and well-being of women and girls living and affected by HIV. And since 2021, ICWEA, as part of our legacy of amplifying women's voices, we have been recognizing outstanding women across the Eastern African countries through the Fierce Award.
The outspoken HIV/AIDS activist and director of health and community outreach in Operation Wealth Creation, retired Major Rubaramira Ruranga, is not impressed with the current HIV prevalence among the youth population.
So disappointed because I think Uganda was one of the first countries in this world to open up about HIV. The president went all over the country and tried to warn people about HIV. And many programs were set. The Uganda AIDS Commission was born, but up to now, the numbers of people living with HIV and AIDS is still almost the same after 40 years. 1.5 million people. It reduces a little bit and then goes back. I think there is something that has gone wrong. And I do think that we need to go back to what the president has already said. We need to look at the culture. We need to educate mothers and young people growing up.
A member of ICW East Africa and Executive Director Mama Club Uganda, Dr. Lydia Mungerera, says the journey to combat HIV/AIDS has been long and full of successes.
20 years down the road, we are celebrating 20 years today, International Community of Women Living with HIV and in Eastern Africa. And I think we have moved a long journey because there were many years ago when many of us thought that we would not survive this virus. And look where we are now. And not only have we come by ourselves, but we've brought others along with us. And we've now mentored the younger people to also join us. And I think we've fought a big battle. We've pulled all kinds of strings. We have gone over mountains. And here we are today.
Too many HIV activists, shrinking advocacy spaces for some key populations, and unfavorable legal and policy environment have continued to weaken prevention efforts.
You win some, you lose some, but some battles. So we may be not winning all the battles, but we are pushing the enemy. I think the battle fronts are moving in our favor. It is true that we still have pockets of flares of infections, young people especially, many of them who never saw people with AIDS, and the messaging needs to keep changing. You remember we used to put billboards, now we have to go on social media. We used to use what you call the shock and awe messages, telling them AIDS kills, which is still true, but we need to find ways of packaging our information so that people, one, know can be able to utilize it and avoid getting this disease. But we need to look at those pockets. Where is it flaring amongst young people?
There has been a lot of stigma and discrimination, especially on me. And I was I can claim that I was the first teacher to come out as a person living with HIV. And as a woman, I immediately joined ICWE. So it has been a tough journey with lots and lots of stigma. I remember a time when I was removed from the payroll of the teachers. I was denied the opportunity to work as a teacher. I was not posted anywhere at all as a teacher. But being an ICW member, I said I will continue to advocate so that there is no other teacher or other woman discriminated to the level that I was discriminated against.
So people have to look at that. Access to treatment. We have 200,000 people. They are positive, they are not in treatment. Where are they? Why are they not on treatment? What is happening to their life? And there's those who are on treatment because of the stigma and the discrimination that still exists. They cannot adhere on treatment. So we could really do better if we focus on those three areas. Young people, access to safe behaviors, and access to treatment.
Speaking at the occasion, a celebrated HIV activist and the executive director at the Global Network of People Living with HIV, Florence Riako, applauded ICW East Africa for being part of the champions to streamline HIV policies and encouraged HIV/AIDS activists to reinvigorate the people living with HIV to protect the hard-won achievements.
From pioneering advocacy for access to antiretroviral treatment, which was the biggest issue at the time, to championing for policies that protect the rights of women living with HIV, you have reshaped the landscape of health and equity in East Africa and in the world. Your work has not only transformed lives, but also inspires and continues to inspire global movements and organizations, even like mine, the Global Network of People Living with HIV.
The head of HIV Prevention Department at the Uganda AIDS Commission, Dr. Daniel Byamukama, congratulated ICW East Africa for attaining the 20th mark in HIV prevention and advocacy.
That out of the many organizations, you stand out as a star. You are always in the room. The room is not complete without ICWEA. Their method of work are quite impactful. They seek to influence the agenda. They will even go an extra mile to propose that they will fund the meeting so that they can influence the agenda. So their method of work are quite impactful, and they are chosen area to create impact. Right now, we recognize in the HIV response, there's nothing that stands in our way more than the two social evils: gender inequality, stigma, and discrimination.
Justice. In 3, 2, 1. Congratulations. Hey, now become a musician. And jubilations. DJ.